enjoyed watching this video and would love to stay up to date when I have more content like this or something similar that you may be interested in, please like and subscribe to this channel and click the bell so you get notifications. And I hope you have a great day.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today on what I've called the mold meeting. For the next half hour or so, we're going to go over everything that people really should know and consider when it comes to mold in homes and also how to prevent it. And to help me with this meeting, I have Brian Walker here with me today. He has been in the residential and commercial construction industry his entire life, working as a trade, builder, and remodeler. He is nationally certified as a master inspector and the owner of Envision Property Inspections. Brian is also a certified master inspector with Internachi and also certified to teach continuing education classes to realtors through CE Marketplace. Brian is also a field trainer for home inspector students at ATI Home Inspection Institute. So thank you, Brian, for being here. We greatly appreciate that.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So, for people who don't know, main question is, what is mold?
Mold is nature's cleaner. It breaks down organic material, so like dead trees, fallen leaves, dead plants. Basically clean up the environment. It's a good thing outdoors, just not a good thing indoors.
Makes sense. And what are different types of mold?
Oh, I think there's 1.5 million different types of mold, different
Wow.
species. They kind of want you hear Stachybotrys, Cladosporium, Penicillium, Aspergillus. Those are things you might find indoors that aren't good. There's many more too, but those are ones you hear quite a bit about. Stachybotrys, that's your black mold. So, and even though the mold can be green, yellow, white, it can still have health problems.
Okay, and you would say that black mold is like the worst type.
That's when you hear about quite a bit, yes. So they all cause different issues with people. If you're immune compromised or have allergies, they can all cause your allergies to flare up. Um, there's we'll say it wrong, myricamitis or whatever. That one's not good either. That causes fungal infections. So they
Mm.
all cause different kind of things. Just depends on how you are as a person. Are you allergic? How much exposure you have. Um, so yeah, they're all a little different. Mostly it's like it might be allergies. So if you're allergic, you may have just something small like that, or it could be something major when you start having more health problems.
Okay. And what would you say how mold ends up occurring in homes for the most part?
So mold will reproduce by releasing tiny spores that are invisible to the naked eye. In perspective, raindrop is between 600 and 10,000 microns. So picture a raindrop. A mold spore is between 5 and 30 microns. So you can't see it floating through the air. And being that small, your screens won't stop it. It'll attach to clothes and stuff. When you walk through your house, it falls off. And when mold comes in contact with moisture, it may start to grow. So mold needs three things to grow. It needs a food source, a water source, and mold has to be present.
You said
So if there's no
a food
food,
source and a water source. Is that what you said?
yeah, food source and water source. And if there's no mold, it can't grow. All right. And it's just that simple. Um, Out of that equation, the only thing we can control is the water source. Because most houses, if you think about it, they're built out of dead wood, right? You have studs, dead trees. Your molding around your floors, your windows, dead trees. The paper on your drywall backing, dead trees. So it's doing its job actually. If mold comes in the house, it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's cleaning up the environment, the dead organic materials. Um, so the only thing we can control is just the water. So for me, mold is a symptom, right? So I'm trying to figure out why it's there. Where's the water coming from? Water is a problem. So if you control your water, you're going to help control your mold a little bit. But there will always be mold in every single house because it is floating through the air.
Makes sense. But it only becomes a problem when it starts attaching to stuff.
Correct. And it starts to grow.
Okay. And so how often do you come across, I guess, mold in home inspections in terms of it being an issue? And where is it usually in the home?
So I would say probably about half the house we go into, we find some sort of, we gotta call it fungus. Unless you're testing it, you don't know exactly what it is. All mold's a fungus, not all fungus is mold. So unless we're doing a mold test, we can't tell you if it is mold, what kind of mold it is, all that. So we tell you it's discoloration or a full mold-like substance or a fungal growth in there. I would say about half the house we go into have some kind of growth going on. And it's always in what locations. It's going to be your crawl space, your basement, bathrooms, attic, kitchen. Very seldom you see it like in the living room of a house, unless there was a roof leak or something like that. But typically we see it in the basement, crawl space, and attic.
And is it more of a concern or issue if it's in a different part of the house versus another house part of the house?
Oh, no, because you're trying to find where the water came from. So it's still a concern, no matter where it's at in the house, it's still a concern because it's there. But it's trying to figure out where or what caused that. Why is it there? So if it's on the second floor in the middle of a bedroom ceiling, we know it's probably a roof leak causing it. Then you have to figure out where that roof leak is at and it hasn't been addressed. If it's in the basement, we're looking for obviously signs of water. Was it a sewer backup or is it water coming in the wall somewhere? Attic is usually a ventilation issue. So it's not vented properly, or your bath fans vent up into the attic, creating a warm, moist air. So, kind of knowing where it's at helps determine like what the cause may be. But as far as where it's at in the house, it's still there. So it's also in heating ducts. So it's just, trying to figure out where it's coming from.
Okay. And then how do you test for mold?
So there's different ways you can test. We actually have, I brought it with me. We have a mold pump. So it's an air quality test. So with this, we're going to program it for so many minutes at so many liters per minute. We put this little cassette on there, and this creates a vacuum. So sucking air from the house into this cassette, which has got a tape inside. We send it to a lab. They're going to tell you what mold is present, the spore count, so you kind of know where it's at. With this, you do an outdoor control test, so you want to know what's there currently at that area, because mold will fluctuate throughout the day and throughout the year, and what mold is there. So it may be in the springtime you have different mold do outside and then two interior.
It broke up a little bit when you said springtime. Can you repeat that?
Oh, so you'll have different mold in springtime versus the fall. So different mold will be present. So by doing a control, you know what's there at that point in time at that house, like what's actually in the air.
Mm.
And then we do the inside, you determine, okay, is it a higher count or different mold present? And what's going on with it. Then we send it to a lab. So we're doing 3 samples minimum. We send it to a lab and they tell us what's there. The other thing we do is if there's a surface that we see, we use a swab where we actually just pull this apart, swab the wall, put it back in the canister, and send it to the lab. Or surface tape where you actually put it on the wall, pull the mold off, you stick it to a slide, and send it to a lab. And the last thing we do is it's called bulk sample, where we actually cut a piece of that out, the drywall, whatever, and send the whole thing in. That way they can tell you what's present at that point.
Okay. And you're not, so I don't know, just to clarify, you're saying you may do one of the four or you do all four, depending
Depends
on.
on what's there. So if we see it, I'm going to do a surface sample also. So I'm going to do the swab or that tape because I want to know exactly what that point is. If I don't see anything, I'm doing 3 air samples because I want to know what's present in the air too. So we also make sure we're running the furnace or AC for 10 minutes before we do any kind of interior test. I want to disturb the air as much as possible. So in case there is mold in those ducts, we can make sure it's getting up into the canister and we can tell what's going on with it.
Well, that sounds very thorough. And I know you said that sometimes it's fungus, sometimes it's mold. If you were just to make, assumptions or estimates without testing, what are some of the signs or evidence that it would be mold without actually testing mold?
Well, so if you're living in the house, if you have allergies and you're going in your house and you're sneezing and stuff like more than you would outside, there's a chance you have something growing in the home. Um, Same thing if you go in the house, you're feeling sick all the time. Something's not right with the house. So it could be, it could be mold or allergens in there. Also the staining, what does it look like? Because mold will form circular patterns sometimes. You'll see like this, especially in a Staphylococcus, you'll see this black circle, and you can pretty much tell it's more likely mold versus, dirt or called smut. Um, but really, the only way to know tell is to test it, or you really need to swab and see what it is. But your body is going to tell you what's going on. If you're going in your house and you have a mold allergy and you're sneezing constantly in your house, something's not right. So it could be other allergens, the pets, whatever, or it can be mold.
And would you say for the average person, if you're getting sick, that means it's gotten pretty bad at that point?
It could be. I mean, some people are highly allergic to it, and they can walk in a house and be sneezing in 5 minutes. Like people with cats and stuff. My wife has a cat allergy, and she's around a cat for 5 minutes, she's sneezing. Well, a mold allergy is the same thing. So it could be throughout, or it could just be you're that sensitive to it.
Makes sense. And what are the most common ways to get rid of the mold?
Cutting it out. So the best way to get rid of mold is just get rid of it. Cut it out of where it's at. So if it's on drywall, you cut the drywall out, you get rid of that. Sometimes you can't. So if it's on like a structure of the house, they can do a chemical spray. They can do like a dry ice where they actually use pressure, like a pressure washer almost, and blast it to clean it up. I've heard that you can actually sand it. I don't know how true that is. I'm guessing it's got to be certain conditions to do that. But I mean, ideally, the best thing to do is hire a company because they're going to do the right technique for that, what you have going on. If it's drywall, they're going to cut it out properly. They're going to contain that area properly. They're going to make sure that it's not putting spores throughout the air everywhere else. So you're not spreading the mold.
Okay. What are the costs of getting rid of the mold?
That's job dependent. So it's going to depend how much is there, what you have to do for it. Because if you have just a little spot, um, to my 10 area, whatever it might be cheaper. But if it's throughout the whole house, or I've gone to houses and the whole crawl space is full of it, well, then you're probably a lot more money. I'm guessing, throw a number out, $10,000 or more. So it really depends on the job itself.
Right. No, that makes sense. Now, is it ever any scenario where the mold is simple enough just to wipe it away?
Well, it depends on what it's on and where it's located. Like if you have mold's common in the bathroom, right? So if you have, people call it mildew on your tile, well, it could be mold too. You can use a product that's EPA approved to kill mold or mildew. Follow instructions, protect yourself, wear a mask or respirator, and you know, PPE, so gloves, all that kind of stuff, spray it down. But if it's on drywall or something like that, or if it's a large area, I'd probably look at hiring somebody out. Anything that's easy to wipe, so plastic, I've seen mold on ranges before, so it's on a metal. Okay, well, you're gonna spray it and wipe it off. Doesn't mean it's a mold problem. It means it's just there. So when I go in a house and I see, I try to figure out what's causing the issue. So if it's, around a range and there's not a hood fan or anything to get some air movement there, it could be that. Right? And okay, well, here's why it's there, and here's how you fix the problem. My concern is, like I said, what's causing it to be there. If it's a bathroom, you're not running your bath fan long enough, probably. You're not opening a window. Here's how we address the problem. Um, so it's just figure out what problem is, where it's at, and can you clean yourself. They say anything less than 10 square feet, you should take care of yourself. But I'm the kind of person I think err on the side of caution. If it's less than 10 square feet, it's not going to cost you $1,000 probably to get rid of it. So do it that way and be done with it. And it's done properly. So hire somebody.
And then what happens if the mold sits too long in the house? or long periods of time?
So mold, like I said, it eats organic material. So if mold is left untreated in the house, it can start eating the house. It can eat the structure away. So I've actually gone to houses where there's mushrooms growing out of the floor joists and they're so wet and they're just completely gone. So that's my always concern is what's happening to the home. So it's a water issue. The water is there, the mold's growing, and what damage is happening to that structure now.
And I think we talked a little bit about this, but what would you say overall are the dangers of living in a house with mold
Oh,
or
health
short
problems.
or long term? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Health problems, 100%. So, um, it can cause immune system disorders, memory loss, skin irritation. Um, you can get a fungus infection. A lot of different things depends on what's there, what it can cause, and how immune compromised you are. If you're a healthy individual, some mold doesn't cause any problems. But if you have asthma, allergies, and stuff like that, it may start causing more and more issues. And then, um, I'm drawing a blank on what I was going to say now. I'm drawing like respiratory problems. So, I can't remember what was I call it now, but yeah, it can cause a lot of different problems, a lot of different people. And plus structural problems. That's a bigger concern. Like I said, mold can be taken care of, right? You can clean it up, take care of the problem and stuff, and that'll take care of the health problems, but they do damage to the house as well.
Yeah, what was I going to say? I think you were saying sometimes it can depend on the person how sensitive they are to it. But is there like, when you have like those illnesses come into effect, do you think that that is just a sign of it growing and being there and being with it for longer, or still you think it can happen very quickly or it can take a long time depending on the person?
Well, if it's allergies, it's probably it can happen anytime, right? But if you're having more problems, autoimmune problems, that's what I say, autoimmune problems. If you're having like skin irritation, that's being exposed for longer periods of time. And it's not good breathing that. If you're having, respiratory problems and stuff, that's long-term exposure probably. And that's why you're going to want to take care of it. Because being in a house or a building or whatever that has mold in it, you're there for 8, 10 hours a day, you're breathing that in, that's not good for you. So yeah, I mean, when you start getting more and more severe symptoms, it's probably longer exposure.
Okay. And I was told by someone recently, I don't know how, detailed or true that is, but I guess the person had a lot of water in the basement, but apparently, and it must not have been as correlated with the kitchen, or maybe it could have been both. But I guess at some point the colors changed and like it was like these, I guess, yellow spots everywhere or something like
Mhm.
so that it was the mold had just been there for so long that it changed colors and became like the worst
Look,
thing.
so not all mold is black. Mold's different colors. It can be green, yellow, white, gray, and that kind of helps you determine not 100% what kind of mold it may be. So having yellow, it could be aspergillus because it's kind of a yellowish mold. So, it depends on what's present, what's growing there. If you have a water problem for a long period of time, as water evaporates, it turns to vapor, it hits a solid surface, it can condensate and come back down and then create more mold again. So that's why it's really important to address a water issue and dry your house up as soon as you possibly can. Within 48 hours, if possible, get that whole thing dried up, and then you're going to help limit, not stop, but limit mold growth.
Um, so what are the best, well, you kind of talked about, but what are the other overall the best ways for homeowners to prevent mold from coming to the house ever?
So you won't prevent it from coming in the house, but you can prevent it from growing or limit from growing. That's controlling the water. So again, anything, if you had a flood, make sure you're drying up as soon as you possibly can. If it can within 48 hours, that's going to help limit mold growth. Get your downspouts away from your house as far as possible. So rainwater is flowing away from the house, not towards the house. Make sure that your grading is sloping away from the house, not towards the house. Um, Run your air conditioner, 'cause that's a dehumidification system, or a dehumidifier in the basement. That's going to help dry stuff up in the basement and not be so damp down there. Running your bath fan or opening a window while you're taking a shower and for 10 minutes afterwards. That helps dry that room up a little bit. Opening windows up. That's simple. Just let air flow through the house. That's going to help dry the house up. When you have a stagnant area, like a lot of times I'll go in a basement and there'll be an area where they have storage and stuff, and there's no airflow through there. You'll see what looks like mold growing on the basement wall. Just from not having airflow. Air movement's going to help dry that up a little bit. So just controlling the water.
Okay. Well, is there anything else you want to add what we talked about today?
No, just think, like I say, mold's a symptom, water is a problem, right? So if you see mold, yeah, you want to take care of it, but you have to address the water issue first. So you have to address what happened to there. If it's a flood of the basement from a sewer backup or whatever, you know what caused that. Okay, we know how to fix that. But if it's not that, you have mold growing in your wall somewhere, you have a leak, you gotta address that. Because if you just take care of the mold, it's gonna come back. So you have to address the issue causing the problem before you address the problem.
That makes sense. Okay, and then how can people oh, I guess I didn't talk about I guess one other question. So if they do get a mold test, right? How much would that cost with you?
I think we charge 350. Don't quote me on this because I'm not the person that does pricing. I think it's 350 for 3 samples.
Okay.
And then we send it to a lab, um, overnight it to them. They send us report usually this the next day. And the reports is very detailed. Here's what mold is there, what spores are there, any water causing mold, which are the ones we're really concerned with because there's a bigger problem. They highlight in red so you know that, hey, this is more of an issue. These are ones we want to look at. Why is that there? Like I said, water is always the problem. Like I said, having a mold spore here and there is not a concern. You're going to have that in the house. But when you start having um, waterborne mold, I guess, then you start having more of a concern because water's coming in the house. If water can carve the Grand Canyon, it can destroy your house.
All right. Thank you so much. And so, if someone is looking to schedule an inspection, what's the best way to reach you guys?
Well, you can call our office, 586-453-8755. You can go to our website, which is envisionpropertyinspections.com. You can text that office number as well. We get text there. Um, email us. So,
Oh, and what's a good email for you guys?
inspections@envisionpi.com.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Hope you guys enjoy this and I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you.
You're welcome.